The most dangerous thing in the life of black people, second only to white racism, is elitist blacks. Elitist blacks are largely responsible for the lack of progress in the current quality of life that is exercised by the black masses. Elitist blacks are some ministers, some imams, some religious leaders, some business owners, some politicians, some community leaders, some college graduates who position themselves in relation to the power structure and sustain their existence in that relationship with the power structure by exploiting, misrepresenting, and misleading the black masses. Members of the black elite often have the same opinions and viewpoints towards the black masses as white people do. They are almost white people in black faces. They have the same ambitions, the same goals. They are just as capitalist-minded. They are just as interested in moving out of their neighborhoods or not supporting people in their neighborhoods. They treat black children just as poorly and meanly as any white racist or white elite would do. Black masses are the biggest reason for our lack of progress. Because what the black masses, the black elite are the biggest reason for the lack of progress on part of the black masses. What they do is they set themselves up as leaders for the black masses. So what you have are Negroes who don't like black people, but who lead black people. These are the people who are so quick to be appointed into government positions that are of influence to the black community and give off the false belief or notion that they are actually there to do some good for the black people, and they are not. One of the reasons why black people haven't made much progress since the Civil Rights Bill of '64 and the Voting Rights Act of '65 is because the leadership that has taken over since the assassination of Dr. King, Medgar Evers, and Malcolm X has been a black elitist leadership. Some people call black elitists bourgeois. Although sometimes I use that term, I try not to use it too much because they're really not black bourgeois. Because a bourgeoisie, which is a Marxist concept, is someone who owns a certain degree of wealth. Members of the black elite don't really have a lot of wealth. They have some. But the black elite does not equal the upper middle class white bourgeoisie who they are often compared to. They have cash, not wealth. White bourgeoisie has wealth. Black elites have cash. They have more money and influence, but they don't have the type of wealth that middle class and upper class whites have. But these black elitists, the civil rights leaders and ministers, they don't do anything of consequence to help black people. All they do is feed off of black people's emotions. They feed off of black people's failures. These are the folks who will set up a church in a poor black neighborhood and do nothing for the people in that neighborhood, although they extract hundreds of thousands of dollars from that community. These are people who will become principal at a school, or start their own school, or run for public office, never doing anything of consequence to help the blacks. All they do is help themselves at the expense of black people. See, what black elites operate in a clique. If you want to be a member of the black elite, you have to join. You have to become a Mason or join a certain fraternity, or you have to be born into the black elitist club by virtue of your parentage or by virtue of who your mentor was in the community. But you must be nominated and brought in. Not anyone is allowed to be within the black elitist structure. Now, me personally, I could join the black elites if I wanted to, but I'm not interested in it. I have the training, the schooling, the accolades, but I'm not interested because to join the black elite, to become a member of that parasitic group, is to automatically turn your back on black people. Most of your politicians are black elitists. Most of your civil rights leaders are black elitists. Most of your clergymen, not just Christian, but Islamic, Buddhist, Hebrew, I don't care what it is, most of the leaders are members of the black elite. They might seem like they represent different factions of the community, but at the end of the day, they come together in secret and in private, and they meet amongst themselves. The black elites are the biggest problem that black people have, because these are the people who misdirect your energy. They tell you that Barack Obama is doing a good job for you, even though he's done nothing. They tell you to vote for Barack Obama, even though they don't have the slightest idea what he's going to do for black people once they get in. Why do they do this? They tell you to vote for certain people for mayor and vote for certain people for governor, and they tell you not to get upset at the police when they brutalize black people. These are the people who are very careful about their words. They don't say too much when white racism strikes because they have a relationship with the white racist structure. They can't go to war with white racism because they have a relationship with the white racists. So their job is to do what? Calm you down so you don't force them to do the job that they should be doing in the first place. Every time you meet a black person, particularly if they are so-called middle class or well-educated, if they're a politician or civil rights leader or a religious leader, you want to ask yourself, is this person representing me? Or are they simply controlling me in the interest of white racism and supremacy so they can carve out a niche of existence for themselves? A good book to read would be E. Franklin Frazier's Black Bourgeoisie, Nathan and Julia Hare's The Black Anglo-Saxons. I'm also going to be penning a book on black elitists, because black elitists have to be getting out of the way. Black elitists are largely responsible, okay, for the death and incarceration of many of our black leaders. For example, if we look at the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey as an example, it was black elitist A. Philip Randolph and black elitist W.E.B. Du Bois who helped create the atmosphere that allowed the United States government to bring Mr. Garvey up on false charges, imprison him, and ultimately deport him. I'm not saying that black elitists don't do a little bit of good, but the good that they do is almost inconsequential when we look at the lack of action that they take. Every black person has to make a decision. Every black person. Either you are going to fight white racism and fight white supremacy, or you are going to aid, abet, support, and accommodate it. Every black person has to make that decision. You're either going to ignore white supremacy, which means that you are supporting it by neglect, okay? Or you're going to fight white supremacy. Black elitists do not fight white supremacy. They simply bargain with white supremacy. They reason with white supremacy. They come to certain types of agreements with white supremacy. But they're not trying to bash white supremacy because they themselves are white supremacists in blackface.